Joe Biden goes to New Jersey to try to comfort victims of Hurricane Ida, where he finds angry protesters screaming and heckling him for his decisions in Afghanistan. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses all around the world. Before we start, I do want to take a moment to invite any business owners out there that like what you're seeing, like the cut of our jib, to support our program through advertising, to email us. The Dr. Duke Show reaches tens of thousands of like-minded people every day, and perhaps we could be a great partner to help you promote your business. Simply email media@FPEUSA, that's media@FPEUSA.org to get the conversation started. All right, Katie's kicking things off with a good, strong look at the health of our republic.
Well, with Labor Day now behind us, many have transitioned to fall mentality, and that includes the President of the United States.
President Biden trips, not once, not twice, but 3 times as he tries to climb the stairs to Air Force One today.
Sorry, wrong kind of fall. As you've probably seen, Joe Biden has been fall-failing all over the place this entire presidency. I've been sharing with you all of that insanity, and I wish I could say we've reached the end.
But wait, there's more.
And this is the latest and greatest.
You know, the looks like a tornado, they don't call them that anymore, that hit the crops and wetlands in the middle of the country, and Iowa and Nevada, and I mean, it's just across the board. And, as I said, we're in this together.
Feel free to fact check that entire nonsense. I think a tornado has wrecked his brain. And that is said by me, someone in the middle of the country who lives near crops, not the wetlands, of Nevada, a state which is not in the middle of the country, where we actually have tornadoes and still call them tornadoes because swirly clouds is too sissy. But we're in this together. That's why on his way out the door to get on Marine One to fly to New Jersey, Biden asked the tough question on our behalf.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yep. Is the sun going to come out tomorrow? Yep.
That's presidential leadership right there. Much like the leadership shown in the show West Wing, where Martin Sheen played President Josiah Bartlet. In the show, Bartlet had a famous line that he said over and over, "What's next?" That line implied the president wanted to keep moving ahead and doing his job. In the reality TV world we live in, we have a president who also has a line.
Come on, man. Come on.
Or maybe it's not so much a line, which involves vocal language.
President Biden, what about the Americans left behind? President Biden gave orders to the Taliban.
Keep on walking. That's right, because Joe Biden doesn't care to do his job. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He's just a wanderer. Yeah, a wanderer. He roams around. Before we move on with Joe, please share this video to show that you care. And then answer today's burning question. Which song do you think best describes Joe Biden's presidency? Let me know in the comments below, because as you may have picked up on from my various references all these years, I'm a bit of a music junkie. And of course, if you'd like to subscribe to the Healthy Republic on YouTube, I would be grateful for that too. Back to one more pop culture reference. There is another West Wing Jed Bartlet line that most adequately describes how much of a mess we are in and how our republic is falling in more ways than one.
That decisions are made by those who show up.
Well, Joe Biden hasn't shown up in months, if not years. The version of Biden that we have just falls and fails a lot, especially in Afghanistan, with the latest development over the holiday weekend being even more devastating. Just when you thought the recklessness of Biden's actions that got 13 service members killed was bad,
But wait, there's more.
all of us sentient beings knew that Biden lied in his promise to get all of the Americans out. And, as George Stephanopoulos said, we knew the Taliban would be the terrorists they can be. And so it's no surprise that planes full of U.S. citizens and green card holders are not allowed to leave Afghanistan because they must wait if and when the Taliban agrees to take off. As a senior congressional source said it, The Taliban is basically holding them hostage to get more out of the Americans. What was that bold statement you made, Joe?
America is back. America is back. Diplomacy is back at the center of our foreign policy.
He had to say it twice to make himself believe it. Diplomacy and foreign relations. How well that one aged. As bad as Joe did. Fear not, Biden has another slogan to appear like he cares. This time for the domestic side of things.
My Build Back Better agenda.
Build back better. So, how is the economy? How's job growth? Oh, jobs report disappoints. Only 235,000 positions added versus expectations of 720,000. But Biden bloviated Build Back Better. How do we not have jobs for these people? Oh, why America has 8.4 million unemployed when there are 10 million job openings. Riddle me that. But you see, the reason is there's a thing out there. It's that thing you can't talk about or you'll be banned. It's that thing's fault. You know, it starts with a C and ends with an Ovid. Just blame that thing for everything. It has nothing to do with the fact that for months and months, exorbitant unemployment benefits have been handed out like ice cream cones on a hot summer day.
My name is Joe Biden. I love ice cream. You all think I'm kidding. I'm not. I ate more ice cream than the three other people you'd like to be with.
Which is probably why Biden and his people are focused on the most pressing issue to stimulate the economy. The federal government is looking into the McDonald's ice cream machines because they are mysteriously broken a lot. And that makes Joe a sad boy. Summer is basically over, and that means no more ice cream unless it's pumpkin spice and then it's free reign. The Biden administration is going into the fall as a fail thus far, and likely will just keep on leafing the things that should be the responsibility of the president. Before you leave, please take a moment to share this video. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Joined now by Vicky McKenna for our weekly Culture Cast feature. Vicky, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Well, we have an interesting situation where Joe Biden was caught on film in New Jersey. He was going there to take a look at the damage done by Hurricane Ida. And instead of talking about their property, people were screaming at him over fences about how he abandoned people to die in Afghanistan. This is a really remarkable story. And it was, from my perspective, a great thing to see these patriots who were less concerned about their property damage than they were how the American president has abandoned Americans overseas.
I give my life for this country. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. Leave no American behind.
Ronald Wiltrick buried in Arlington, 2011, December 11th. For what? He lost his life for what?
It's a good start. That's all I can say. It's a good start. I saw the chanting, the F Biden chants at the football games over the weekend as well. But, you know, I think what we do in the United States is we're really good at heckling. We heckle well. And so there's some satisfaction in seeing an incompetent buffoon who is president be heckled this effectively. However, Duke, I point everybody's attention to Paris. And I don't normally do this, compare the United States to France unfavorably, but they have been protesting for 8 weekends, close to 100 to 150,000 people per weekend, demanding that their freedom, that they get their freedom back. So when you have France more aggrieved about losing its freedom than the United States, something's seriously wrong. And again, I'm glad that the people in the United States are feeling comfortable, because in pushing back against Biden, they're pushing back against the establishment cancel culture left. And so that is really great. But again, it's not going to amount to much if people don't put that heckling to action.
Well, and it's not just France. I sent you an article I think you may have seen as well. It's Canada. I mean, you've got two of the most, for lack of a better word, overtly effeminate leaders in their leadership style. You've got Macron, the socialist, and you've got Pierre Trudeau's sexually confused son, right? And these guys talk about the most ineffective, squishy liberal pajama boy leadership. And the Canadians, of all people, started to induce, they're rioting, they're in the streets, they're throwing stones, they're actually taking
at
some
their
kind
president,
of...
yes.
At their president.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're seeing the France and then the progeny of France, react in a very visceral way to the restrictions, to the lockdowns, to the incompetence, to the fecklessness of their leadership, to the weakness, to the sacrifice of their nation's, pride on the altar of woke social justice. Maybe we're just a little bit behind. Maybe we're going to see this. I don't want to see riots in the United States. I want to see large-scale, effective protest with effective civil disobedience. And I say that with a caveat. Everybody who commits an act of civil disobedience has to understand that that is against the law, and you have to suffer the legal consequences of that. But to have effective pushback in the United States that actually produces change, that is something that I think it feels like we're far away from that right now.
Well, there is a codicil to what you just said. We conservative Americans, it's exactly a perfect definition of what you just said. But we just went through a year and a half of radical left-wing riots in the streets that were called nothing more than protests. And look at how much. And look at how much.
It wasn't even civil disobedience.
No, it wasn't.
Was just overt criminality, just
right.
wanton criminality.
And yet, look at how much progress the left made through those riots. I mean, almost everything you're seeing going on today in corporate America with its selling out to social justice is a result of those violent protests. And so to the conservatives of America, to the Christians of America, to those of us who are Republicans or middle of the road, it sends you one very strong message in this country. If you get out there and you do damage and you are an unstoppable force, you're going to get your way. Whereas if you play it nice, if you go the Tea Party route, right, or you show up on Sunday afternoons for 3 hours and you leave the park that you protest in cleaner than you found it, and you're all 65 years older and above, that's going to be called an insurrection. But what Black Lives Matter and Antifa did is called social justice.
Exactly, and it's called protest. And if you show up at an event, and what conservatives do and the Tea Party people did and the Trump people do is they show up for rallies. Rallies aren't protests. Rallies are rallies. Protests actually require you to have a point and a demand. Nobody in the United States fears conservatives. And with all of the lying narrative about January 6th, there is not a single person in Washington, D.C. who feared any conservatives showing up. This is about trying to figure out ways to keep us down, to make us fearful of showing up en masse again. But no one fears us. The reason why corporate America caved after the Black Lives Matter riots, after the Antifa riots, it isn't even so much that they liked the demands, because there weren't any. It was because they feared the mob and they were already predisposed to believing in the same sort of progressive sensibilities. So we're up against people who don't agree with anything we say, and they have no reason to fear us whatsoever.
After the break, we'll take a quick turn back to Joe Biden's heckling. And believe it or not now, he's blaming the heckling on people who don't understand global warming. He's getting screamed at about abandoning people in Afghanistan. And the problem is climate change after the break.
Of course.
Back again with Vicky McKenna for the second half of our Culture Cast. Vicky, so we talked about Joe Biden getting heckled for his Afghanistan pullout in New Jersey when the president just went there to survey the damage and to put his hand on the shoulder of people. And the thing that gets me about this, there's still not a single shred of evidence still that the hurricanes have anything to do with global warming. There's not a single reputable scientist who will say there's any connection between global warming and hurricanes. And yet, when Joe Biden was finally called out for being screamed at, his response was to accuse those families, those people who are yelling at him, of not understanding the science of global warming and how serious it is.
Walking these neighborhoods, meeting the families and the first responders, seeing how folks are doing after this destruction and pain and another devastating storm is an eye-opener. The people who stand on the other side of the fences who don't live there, who are yelling that we're talking about interfering with free enterprise by doing something about climate change, They don't live there.
That's right. That's right.
They don't live. They don't understand.
So how bizarre is this? You've got people whose property has been devastated by a storm, and instead of caring about, what's FEMA going to do for me, what they want to do is they want to let the president know what they think about the despicable debacle that is Afghanistan, and the United States genuflecting on the world stage, at the feet of radical Islam, at the feet of people who loathe and despise everything we stand for in this country. That's what they're mad about. Mind you, their roof is ripped off, but they're mad about what's going on in Afghanistan, and good for Americans who are mad about that. And Joe Biden to respond, you're just so dumb. You just don't understand that, if only you understood the science of global warming. We just had a story last week declaring that the single largest public health threat on the planet is global warming, and that the hurricanes were caused by global warming. And Duke, if only we had passed that ridiculous stimulus package that does absolutely nothing for infrastructure, but eliminates single family zoning, why we would have stopped Hurricane Ida. I'll tell you something, it seems so absurd and it sounds almost comical, like it's a punchline to a really dumb joke. But there are people who have been raised in K-12 public education, whose parents have not monitored anything that they've been exposed to, who've gone on to university, who have never been taught to think critically at all, who actually believe this stuff. And the scary thing is, more of them are in power and embedded in power in the United States than the people who are skeptical.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And it's not just in power in the United States, it's behind the scenes. Journalists, lobbyists, big corporations. The thing that's so odd about this is that we are being lied to on a daily basis on a scale that just 5 years ago would have been impossible. It would have been impossible to slip this by the American people. There were enough quasi-Democrats with a conscience who would have called this out. Now, what price? Already the mainstream media is burying the lead in Afghanistan. Already they've moved on. The Hollywood celebrities have also said, we stand by Joe, he did the right thing. That means, again, leaving women to die. That's the right thing for Hollywood. And media's moved on and forgotten about it. Now, the tech companies have been sort of pushing back on burying some of these leads. Now the pivot, and we said this for a long time, as the grip on COVID chaos and paranoia begins to wane, as it becomes harder for the left to use that as a reason to control the American people, the next big pivot was going to be to climate change.
Necessarily. And in order to maintain the control, the levers of control that were seized under the auspices of protecting us from COVID, that was necessarily going to pivot to climate change as well. So, but you're right about the declaration that we have been lied to in ways in magnitude that none of us have ever experienced before. Those are the things that we read about that were going on in East Berlin, in the Soviet Union, in North Korea, in Cuba. We're not used to that here. Here's one that was just recent. You had Senator Schumer actually say all Americans who want to be out of Afghanistan are out of Afghanistan. Mind you, you have former special forces going in and trying to rescue people, American citizens with American passports, children, women who had been encouraged to step out and to declare their own rights under the Taliban when the United States was holding that country, and being murdered. Executions being done door to door. And you had Chuck Schumer saying everybody who wants to get out is out, and has planted the flag of success, even as there are people right now languishing, not able to board planes and get out of the country, being held hostage by the Taliban.
It is amazing how the left has created basically a vanishing hole. Anything they don't like, they can dump in it, and it's forgotten forever. Yep. And we will not speak about it. You speak about it, Twitter's going to ban you, Facebook's going to ban you. Meanwhile, we're going to be talking about January 6th for the next 100 years, or until Republicans have been gotten rid of altogether. Time again for some real education. Raphael, our last day, God bless him, on the great Renaissance painter. This is Raphael Week on Instant Classics. I mentioned yesterday that the Transformation was among my favorites. This probably is my very favorite painting by Raphael. It's the very famous School of Athens. Take a look at the picture. It's beautiful. It's a brilliant example of how to use perspective and depth. There you are standing before the picture frame, and it is done. At the bottom right front, you can see how his painted stonework almost projects right up against you. You stand against that. You're looking deep into this long hall, right? You've got that beautiful arch that takes you back to another arch, which takes you back behind it to another arch, which gives way to the city of Athens. Way in the background, you can see the blue sky. Just a masterpiece of creating depth. And of course, what can we say about its content? This School of Athens is a fresco by Raphael. It was painted sometime between 1509 and 1511 as part of Raphael's commission to decorate the rooms now known as the Stanze di Raffaello in the Apostolic Palace in the Vatican. The stanza was the first of the rooms to be decorated, and the School of Athens, representing philosophy, was probably the third painting to be finished there. The painting is notable for its accurate perspective projections, which Raphael learned from Leonardo. The rebirth of ancient Greek philosophy and culture in Europe, that's the Renaissance, baby, along with Raphael's work, were inspired by Leonardo's individual pursuits in the theater, engineering, optics, geometry, physiology, anatomy, history, etc. The work has long been seen as Raphael's masterpiece and the perfect embodiment of the classical spirit of the Renaissance. That's the entire mathematical, philosophical, intellectual history of Greece right there. All the famous thinkers, all the mathematicians, all the great philosophers are there. At the very center of the picture, of course, are Plato and Aristotle, right? There's Plato, you know him. He's got a book under his arm and he points to the heavens because that's the origin of all things, God. Right? Plato's philosophy goes right back to the creator. Then you've got the younger man, Aristotle, whose hand is straight out. He doesn't deny creation. He doesn't deny God. But his studies, his philosophy was anchored more in the material realities of the world. So you've got the two great philosophers of the ancient world, both who believe in God as the creator, one who focuses on the God as the source of all things, the other who tries to create what you and I would know today as independent science. And if you take a look at this picture right here, in the bottom right-hand corner of this painting, there he is. Raphael painted himself, the second one from the right, staring right at you from the canvas. Raphael puts himself among the great classic masters of the ancient world. I like it. All right, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and get access to 18 new videos a week, plus all of our award-winning lectures and animations. Now we want to take a moment to show some love, serious love, to our Patriot Club members. Today, we give a shout out to Crystal from Escondido, California. Thank you, Crystal, for all of your sparkling transparency. Get it, Crystal? In supporting the Dr. Duke Show. And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated just like Crystal is, my friends.